vitamin D is a molecule. It's actually a hormone. There's a little picture of it down here. And first of all, there's 84,378 papers. If you just type in vitamin D in PubMed as of a couple of hours ago, there's 1,000 plus systematic reviews. 1,000 plus systematic reviews. What that means is a systematic review is where people actually take a field of how does vitamin D affect, I don't know, muscle growth? How does vitamin D affect, depression? And they take all the papers and they do what's called a systematic review. So the reason I thought this number was quite interesting is there's been over close to 1,000, types of systematic reviews. That's a lot. So this is a very, very well-researched, ingredient. So anyone who wants to say, well, this is not proven, well, you need to ask them a lot of questions about what they consider proof, because then you have to expose drugs and vaccines, etc., if they want to be on par. Lots of review, lots of research. And there's in fact been 9 systematic reviews on vitamin D on acute respiratory infections. In fact, the latest review was done in 2017, about 2.5 years ago. And this review was done involving 24 institutions in 12 countries, 11,000 participants. So what I want to share with you is the most recent systematic review, which means looking at what everything's been done over the last... Hey, Michelle, I need you to restart this because I'm going to lose Instagram in about an hour. Guys on Instagram, when this ends, I'm going to have to start you again. Jen, will that be okay if I start and stop it? Jennifer?
Yep.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay, it'll start and it'll stop again. Okay. It's okay. Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks. So one of the things is that a lot of research has been done. It's not the battery, Michelle. It's the time remaining. Okay, it's okay. Yeah. In this systematic review, we're looking at 11,000 plus participants. This is not 5 people. This is not 10 people. 11,000 participants. And what this systematic review, which is looking at hundreds and thousands of papers, and remember, this systematic review was done on the value of vitamin D, listen very carefully, to acute respiratory infections. Acute respiratory infections, be it caused by SARS, be it caused by MERS, be it caused by Corona. Acute respiratory infections. And what this study found out, only 2 years old, is that vitamin D supplementation was safe. Number 1, protected against acute respiratory tract infections. 2, 3, let me bring this up so you can follow. 3, what you see is it supported, really affected in a positive way, survival of people in the ICU. 4, the greatest benefits came to those deficient. And the other thing it identified, which I want to share with you, is that there were multiple mechanisms of action that promote the effect of antimicrobial peptides. So what you see here is that the way that vitamin D works, it actually promotes the creation of antimicrobial peptides. And that's what I want you to understand. We're going to go through the science of that. So when someone asks you, well, vitamin D has no effect. What we've done is we've really gone through the research and we have started using cytosol to aggregate. But one of the most, when you look at all the possible things, the system that I want to go over is when you ingest vitamin D, what it does, it's a juice for your body to actually create what are called antimicrobial peptides. And vitamin D enables antimicrobial activity in your macrophages. And your macrophages are all throughout your innate immune system, particularly in the respiratory tract. So we're talking about acute respiratory infection. So vitamin D, by the way, it helps many different areas, okay? But what I really wanted to focus on is how it mechanistically supports this. So let's look at that. Listen very carefully because we've gone through a number of things, but what we're really going to talk about is in the innate and adaptive immune system. Remember, you have multiple subsystems, but the innate immune system is the one that rapidly responds, right? So when you, remember if you ever feel that scratchy throat, you're feeling bad. By the way, if you're starting to feel that, that's the time to hit and support your body. very good, you know, and I have my own recommendations that I do, I'll talk about later. But in this case, the innate immune system, as you see here, has all these amazing military folks, okay? It's got macrophages, it's got natural killer cells, it's got neutrophils, all these things. We're going to really focus on the macrophages. The adaptive has the things that create the antibodies, okay? But these macrophages are really your first line of defense. You know, you get hit with, you know, someone sneezes on you, right? Well, these macrophages are ready to go to war for you, but you need to give them the right fuel. And this is where vitamin D is important. So let's walk through this. So if you look here, what you see here is you have these macrophages. By the way, if you look at your, oops, let me go here. If you look here, as I mentioned here, we have the macrophages here, right here. Macrophages here, all these different kinds of cells. We're looking at the innate immune system. We're looking at the respiratory system, your nasal cavity, as it comes down, you know, through your trachea, through your left lung, to your left bronchus. But here I'm looking at a zoomed in picture, if you look right here, of what's called your alveoli. These are the little sacs where all the transfer of oxygen and blood takes place. And to get a little more detailed, if you think about when you breathe in, as looked at by the red, and you breathe out as the yellow. So when you breathe in, literally in those alveoli sacs, oxygen comes in. Here is blood coming in, which is non-oxygenated. The CO2 leaves, and then the capillaries here interact with the alveoli, and O2 is given. So this is a very powerful, very beautiful way that nature works. You're giving your body, you're removing CO2, and you're giving your body oxygen, okay? This is occurring within here. Now, if you go a little bit deeper, when a virus comes into your lungs, so someone sneezes on you, okay? Someone, you know, coughs on you. Well, what I'm here to tell you is if your immune system is functioning properly, no big deal, okay? It really isn't. But if your immune system is compromised, then you're going to have a problem. And we're going to walk through how that can occur and the influence of vitamin D. So here, what you see here, virus comes in. Let's look a little bit closer. Now, we have to understand that the protection of the airway epithelium from pathogens. So epithelial cells, really, so those are the cells right here. Let me show you right here. These are the, so here is your, you know, your airway that's coming into each one of these alveoli. The epithelial really surrounds the edge, these epithelial cells. So what I'm saying here is when you go here, the epithelial cells form the physical barrier against pathogens, okay? And the airway epithelium actively contributes to the immunity. And in macrophages, the secretion of these peptides takes place. And in particular, what I'm going to focus on is CAMPs. And I'm not talking about going on camp, but it's called catalycidins. Big word, but catalycidins, you know, antimicrobial proteins are critical to antimicrobial activity, and vitamin D is essential to create these CAMPs, okay? So what happens here? Well, here is your alveoli, and you have these macrophages here, okay? These are your military tanks, which are here to go take out these little guys you see here, which are the viruses or bacteria or fungi, okay? They can handle many things, but let's just zoom in on one of the macrophages. By the way, there's two types of macrophages that you have. Your body really uses the immune system sometimes for inflammatory response and sometimes for anti-inflammatory response. So in the case of macrophages, you really have two types of macrophages. You have the pro-inflammatory and the anti-inflammatory. The pro-inflammatory guys are the ones who have anti-microbial properties, and they're the ones who are really involved in taking vitamin D as fuel and really supporting this antimicrobial behavior. So we're really going to focus on these. So when we look at this, what you want to understand is that the vitamin D comes in, and we're going to walk through how the macrophages take that vitamin D, create the catalycidins, you know, the antimicrobial proteins, which are then used to support antimicrobial activity. So what you want to see here is the antimicrobial peptides or catalycidins are evolutionarily conserved across multiple species. So what this really means is these molecules are have been around for billions of years. And if you don't want to believe in evolution and you believe in natural design, and you believe God gave it to us, wonderful. You can believe that approach or the science approach. But regardless, what we know is that the catholicedins have been conserved through many species, and they're the oldest mechanisms of action towards microbial pathogens. The oldest mechanism, okay? And they involve pathogen cell wall membrane disruption of bacteria and viruses. So what that means is these catholicedins have been around for a long, long time. And they have been the oldest mechanism that our body has used to fight microbes, bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Okay? So now let's go a little bit deeper. And what we see here is that I'm going to walk you through this. It's going to seem complicated, but I'm going to make it easy for you. By the way, I'm going to walk you through two diagrams. You know, as I mentioned to you, our technology Cytosolve really allows us to take this ball and stick diagrams and convert it to actually things we can run on the computer. But what you see here is, just to start here, what you see here is this thing that says 25D3. That is the vitamin D3 that you consume, okay? You take that into your body. This line here and all the stuff in the gray is a macrophage. So everything outside here in the white, think about it as your airway. The virus, for example, I have an HIV virus coming in, okay? Could be any virus. But you take D3 into the macrophage, and what the macrophages do is they take the D3 in, and through a series of chemical reactions, they create a usable form of D3. Okay, so you're consuming D3, like cholecalciferol, and your body converts that to a form of D3 through that's this first part here. So your body makes it into a form that it can make bioavailable, and then it uses that through another set of reactions interacting with the nucleus, and I'll come back to this, to create these little objects, molecules called SAMPs, the catholicedins antimicrobial peptides, CAMPs. So vitamin D is here, and what do you get? Voila, you get catholicedins, okay? These catholicedins, so this is the first part of the reaction, but these catholicedins are extremely important. So for example, when a virus comes in, your body is able to use these phagosomes to envelop it, but this reaction, which is called the autophagosome, by these CAMPs, is used to catalyze, which means really inspire this fusion taking place right here. And this process really leads to autolysosome activity, where your lysosomes are able to merge with this and to create the antimicrobial activity. My point is that without vitamin D3 here, it's very, very difficult for your body to make CAMPs. One could argue that it's nearly impossible. So the issue is you consume vitamin D3. Well, you can get it from the sun, right? But if you can't get it, and we're all quarantined inside, which is quite fascinating, we're told to go inside, not go outside. And because of that, and no one is telling us to take vitamin D, but if you do take the vitamin D3, your body, through a series of reactions, will create these catholicedin antimicrobial peptides, which your body then uses through this process of these lysosomes, as I'm sharing here, to literally create the powerhouse for it to go digest and disrupt the viruses. Another way of looking at it, I've drawn another diagram, because we're getting ready using our technology to not only, we've aggregated all this knowledge from all these papers, we're actually putting it into our engine, and we can also help people personalize this. It's another whole thing, but my point is, this is really medicine, and the future of medicine is here, that we really look at holistically what's going on across all that research. Here's another way of looking at it, where the vitamin D, so this little brownish tan area is the macrophage. This is the vitamin D3 coming in. And as you can see, the vitamin D3's process, this is a nuclear membrane, and the vitamin D3 hits a receptor on the nuclear membrane, which then leads to the creation of the catholicedin messenger RNA, which then leads to this antimicrobial activity. Put it simply, what vitamin D, your body is waiting for vitamin D3. It wants it. If you have deficiency in this, what happens? You don't produce enough of the catholicedins. It's that simple. So in order for you to have antimicrobial activity, by the way, this is not just for viruses. We're also talking about bacteria and fungi. So there you go. You can look at that. And in closing, before we go to questions, vitamin D deficiency leads to weakened immune systems. Vitamin D is essential to create those CAMPs, and vitamin D there's a bunch of sources, right? You can get it from sunlight, which would be ideal. This is why dietary supplements could be very valuable. The fatty fish, I just had salmon today, for example, sardines, the cod liver oil. And just to give you an idea that vitamin D, people, relative to what we look at vaccines, it's about a $1.7 billion industry by 2025, and it's growing at about 7%, compared once again to the saviors of failing pharma who want to promote vaccines. This is growing at around doubling. It's 60 billion. It's going to go up to 120 billion, and that's where we're at. So these are our saviors, and look at them very carefully, because these are the guys who want to ensure that we create an environment that we continue promoting the medical establishment. 17%, 20% of our GDP spent on them. 15, 17% of our people are going to be diabetic, immunocompromised. I don't see any state of emergency for that. I don't see quarantines for that. The fundamental issue here is that you have an opportunity to take control of your own lives, overcome this nonsensical fear by really understanding that your immune system that nature gave, that God gave, is intended to be strong. And all you need to do, the first thing you can do, there's many things that can occur in life, but for God's sakes, one thing you can do is sunlight, the rich vegetables, the rich fruits. And if you can't get that, well, take some vitamin D, take some vitamin A, take some vitamin C. And remember, as you age, your thyroid levels go down. The iodine and the iodide help you. This is basics, very basic. Now, you can layer on all sorts of stuff. We can talk about oregano oil, cinnamon oil. There's tons of herbs that nature has given us. But this is something, this time of quote unquote, in my view, deep state created crisis, that we should at least wake up to what we need to do to beef up our immune system.